So I'm here with Rabbi Dr. Jonathan Crane, who is the Raymond F. Shinazi Scholar in Bioethics and Jewish Thought at the Center for Ethics at Emory University. And he recently was the editor of a fascinating book called Beastly Morality.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yeah, so that book emerged from a conference that I held at Emory University where I wanted to explore the concept, the possibility, can animals be viewed as ethical agents in and of themselves? So I invited ethologists, people who study the behavior of animals, as well as people who are more in the humanities, philosophers, historians, religion scholars, literary scholars, and psychologists to address this question. Can animals be viewed or understood as ethical agents? Do they operate with their own ideas of goodness and badness, of right and wrong? And it turns out that, lo and behold, they do, both in the real world, as the ethologists were demonstrating through their studies, as well as in the different disciplines that study the ways that we think about animals as well. And so the book, Beastly Morality, Animals as Ethical Agents, published by Columbia University Press in 2015, pulls together all of those arguments to demonstrate and urge and promote and persuade those of us who might be skeptical to consider that there are non-human animals out there who also operate with notions of morality.
Now, you explore a number of fascinating stories, traditions, ancient narratives. How do those stories help to inform how we think about the human-animal relationship today?
What's so incredible about those old stories, especially the ones that are found in the religious textual traditions, and the ones that I'm most familiar with are found in the Jewish and Islamic textual traditions, is that for a long time, for thousands of years, humans have been interacting with non-human animals, and they have grown to not just hold them with great reverence, but to be in awe of them, because they too see other creatures wandering this terra firma who also operate with notions of goodness and badness, right and wrong. And they created stories thousands of years ago that were then traded down through oral traditions and eventually written down. And we are the beneficiaries of these textual traditions in our respective religious traditions where these stories are captured. And so one, for example, in the Jewish textual tradition is of the donkey of the Gentile prophet Balaam, who is tasked by the king to come and curse the ancient Israelites. And so he gets on his donkey and he tries to ride off to go witness the Israelites, to do the king's deed. But on the way, the donkey has other ideas in mind about where they should go and how they should get there. And they have an altercation. And the donkey accuses Balaam, the prophet. She speaks miraculously in this narrative, but she accuses him of unrighteously or unjustifiably beating her. And for what reason or what reasons can he list that justify his brutal treatment of her? And this little narrative bespeaks an ancient and enduring concern that non-human animals, and this donkey in particular, have a notion of goodness and badness, of justice, and that not only should fellow donkeys be held accountable to it, but Homo sapiens should as well, all the more so. And another story that's similar is a case written by the Ikhwan al-Safa, a collection of Muslim scholars in 10th century Basra in Iraq. In their encyclopedia, the 22nd chapter is all about the case of animals, holding humankind accountable for their atrocious treatment of them. And case after case, animal after animal, genus after genus comes and accuses humankind for their atrocious behavior. And again, this illustrates an ongoing, ancient and ongoing human concern that raises the question, how can we human beings treat other sentient creatures that have their own notions of goodness and badness, of their own senses of a biography, of memory and futurity? How can we treat them with impunity? that perhaps we need to hold ourselves accountable.
So my last question is really a two-part question. Firstly, what's the largest form of philosophical resistance towards seeing animals as ethical agents? And secondly, what are some of the implications to embracing animals as ethical agents?
So the first part would be just the whole thrust of anthropocentrism, that for many, many thousands of years, human civilizations, and Judaism in particular is no exception, we have long wanted to consider ourselves very special in the grand scheme of things, so special that we are exceptional. And the rules and regulations and the norms that guide the natural cosmos, the natural world, applied over there, but we are special indeed. And therefore, we don't need to abide by those rules and regulations. We have a separate set. And this call for, and this desire to understand ourselves is so special, and exempts us from having to treat other creatures, the other denizens of this terra firma, with even modest respect. We allow ourselves to not in anthropocentric philosophical and theological worldviews. And what this book is trying to suggest is that has strong arguments, it has strong foundations, but it doesn't exhaust the totality of philosophical or theological reflection on what it means to be a Homo sapien, what it means to be one creature among many other creatures in the cosmos. And that perhaps these counter-textual traditions that are captured in ancient philosophy and theologies and continued to this day, perhaps we need to be not just anthropocentric, but to start embracing a non-anthropocentric worldview as well.
Just so everyone understands that phrase you use, because I think it's important, can you explain what counter-textual tradition means?
So a counter-textual tradition would be, or a counter-tradition would be, that is found within a canonized textual tradition. So within the Bible itself, for example, the Torah, it has multiple voices that bespeak ancient authorial voices that have different kinds of concerns. And this little story about the speaking donkey bespeaks a sensitivity that even an animal, a non-human animal, has a notion of goodness and badness. The whole genre of speaking animals, this isn't the only time that an animal speaks. Obviously, in the 3rd chapter of Genesis is another creature, the Nachash, that speaks, also with a sense of goodness and badness, of right and wrong. And that Nachash has motivation, which is a fascinating story in and of itself. So counter-traditions are these smaller stories that are still nonetheless captured within a larger canon that offer countervailing assumptions and attitudes about the cosmos and the human location within it.
So in the 21st century, as we're struggling to figure out our sphere of obligation, the extent of our responsibility in the world, I think beastly morality can help advance this crucial conversation. Encourage people to check that out and the other scholarship of Rabbi Professor Jonathan Crane. Thank you so much.
Thank you.